welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are continuing with some Easter cards. This one involves some foiling, which I haven't done in a very long time, and also features a very fun shaped flap to this card. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. I have my Spellbinders Glimmer system heating up on screen. I have two different kinds of Spellbinders Glimmer foil, one more brassy, the other one more champagne-like. For my foiling and my card bases, I am using HAMMERMILL cardstock today. That is what I found has worked best with pretty much every medium that I use, including glimmering, as well as all the other things that I do. The only thing that I've discovered that HAMMERMILL cardstock does not do well is if I use my zig brushes on them. That I do have to use a different kind of paper. In order to do the glimmering, what you do is you turn on your machine, and when that second light from the top, that green light, turns green and stays green, that means that the machine is ready. So what you do is you place your hot foil plate. This is how I do it. I put my hot foil plate with the pretty side facing down, and I create a hinge. I'm using Amazon like heat resistant tape. You're supposed to use this for like when you heat press shirts, but I find it works really, really well for this. So what I'm going to do, this plate is hot. I've already done one. I just wanted to show you how I create kind of the sandwich for this. So I created that hinge. I'm putting the pretty side of the foil up, so it's going to touch the pretty side of the plate. You see me struggling here. It is not that complicated. The plate is hot, and so I'm trying not to burn the tar out of my hands, but it's really not this difficult. So now what I'm going to do, now that the pretty side of my foil is touching the pretty side of my plate, and I have this hinge in place, and I am going to just trim off some of this excess foil so that I limit the amount of overfoiling I'm getting. We are going to make a shaped flap to this card, and that is why that plate is shifted over to the right a little bit more, so that I have a place to create a hinge for our fun shaped flap. So that's why that's placed where it is. I'm going to run this through my glimmer machine. That second light is green, and I have now pressed my timer button. When the timer is done, I'm going to run this through my platinum machine. That applies the pressure. The glimmer machine applies the heat. I have discovered that I need 2 shims in order to get good results. So I have just 2 cardstock shims in there along with the sandwich that is included. And I'm going to peel off this foil, and you are going to see, you can already see how gorgeous it is off to the top right there. I've already done that one. So pretty. Love it. It foiled almost beautifully. There was a little bit of non-foiling right there, and I think that was because I didn't have my shims right there. But the rest of them foil beautifully. So we're going to move on to the stenciling. So I am using, this is the Spellbinders Wonderful Tulips. This is the foil plate. It has a die, and it also has 6 coordinating stencils. I'm making 6 cards today, again, so I need to be able to color quickly. And I have discovered that for me, as a person who is not a huge fan of coloring outside of stencils, that stencils are kind of my jam. So I'm lining up the stencil. Once it's where I want it, I'm going to go ahead and start ink blending. There are 3 stencils for the flower, and there are 3 stencils for the stems and leaves. And I'm going to be using all Altenew inks today. I haven't used my Altenew inks in a very long time, and I wanted to kind of break out with them again. What's nice about this particular stencil set is that if you wanted to use colors that you know would not blend well together, that's okay. The reason for that is because these stencils don't layer on top of one another. They layer like beside one another, if that makes sense. So if you had you wanted to layer an orange and a purple on top of on the same flower, you definitely could, and you wouldn't get like a muddy color. I have 2 of my waffle flower grit mats going. That's because I'm going to make 2 cards in the same colorway. So I'm going to make 2 like pink cards, 2 purple cards, and 2 yellow. So this just kind of makes things a little simpler as far as like mass producing, to have all of the ones that you're going to do at the same time out already and just be able to line up your stencil. Here I'm showing you that like my stencil doesn't move. It's habit for me to hold it in place, but it doesn't actually move because that grip mat grips. So I'm going to tell you what colors I used, but I will be sure to actually link those. Well, not link them, but I will post them in the bottom in the description box just so you can see and use those for reference, because there are quite a few of them. So I'm not doing anything fancy with this ink blending here. It is just very like simple flat color over the top. There are some very thin, for lack of better words, fiddly bits on some of these stencils, and I guess I'm a very aggressive stenciler. Like on this one, that flower, that tulip that's kind of open and facing you, there's a very thin section of that stencil, and I kind of discovered that and almost bent it out of place. So just kind of be cautious, particularly when you find stencils that have very thin lines. It may be beneficial to you to use some sort of like temporary low tack adhesive, just so that you don't run the risk of wrecking your stencils. So for the pink flowers that you see me doing here, this is, wait for it, Pink Diamond is the lightest color, Pinkalicious is the second, and then Rubellite is the darkest. I just wanted to have a little bit of variety in my stenciling today. That's one of the things that when you mass produce, if you need to mass produce but you hate it, you hate the monotony of it, try changing up your colors. See if that helps you from going crazy. So I'm going to just stencil in each of these colors. Again, this is the Pink Diamond, the Pinkalicious, and the Rubellite, and then we will move on to the other ones. I'm going to keep the same greens for all of these cards today. That is a way to save time. If you wanted to save more time, you could do the cards in all the same colors, instead of having 3 different color families that you wanted to do them in. Limiting your color palette is a way to help speed things along. But like I said, if you want to have you need to mass produce, but you hate mass producing because it's monotonous for you, try changing up the colors and see if that helps you. I am wiping off these stencils, when I think about it, while they're still on the card front panel here, just because that makes it a little bit easier to wipe it off. And I'm not actually like cleaning them off with like a spray until I'm actually done with all of my stenciling. This is the third and final layer for the flowers. And then we'll be able to move on to the other colors. And I'm just going to tell you what those are. This is stencil 3. They are numbered in the bottom, either right or left corner. And that tells you kind of the order that you should go in. But honestly, with things like this, because they're pretty easy to line up, and they don't actually like layer on top of one another. They layer beside each other, if that makes sense. You really can go in what order makes sense to you. I happen to actually go in order, but you don't have to. So this is the Rubellite color, and I'm going to show you these ones in real time. And I'm just going to tell you what colors I used for the yellow colorway and for the purple. So for the yellow, I'm using Buttercream, Warm Sunshine, and Caramel Toffee. That is for the yellow combination. For the purple, I am using Soft Lilac, Lavender Fields, and Deep Iris. That's just the color families that I chose to do today. The greens, like I said, I'm just doing all of those the same color. And those are going to be Frayed Leaf, Forest Glades, and Hunter Green. Here's the yellow combination. That's the Buttercream, Warm Sunshine, and Caramel Toffee. And this is the purple, the Soft Lilac, Lavender Fields, and Deep Iris. So now we are ready to move on to the greenery. And that is going to be the Forest Glades, Hunter Green, and Frayed Leaf. Frayed Leaf is the lightest. I chose to do the actual like stems in the quote-unquote darkest color. But like I said, it really doesn't matter with these. You can do them in whatever order you want, whatever meets your fancy. On this stencil right here in my left hand, it has that kind of lattice, which is really pretty, but I was trying to make sure that I didn't get green in my flowers. I end up getting green in my flowers because I didn't notice something. But I'm just going to line these up. Again, there's nothing fancy about any of my stenciling today. I'm not doing any fancy shading or blending here for dimension. I'm just putting down flat color. So again, Frayed Leaf, Forest Glades, Hunter Green. These are all Altenew inks today from their crisp dye ink line. And this is what they look like with the greenery all colored in. So here is one that I got a green dot on. I will show you how I fix that in just a minute. But this is with them all stenciled in. They are super pretty. These are fairly simple shapes that if you wanted to, you could color them in with markers. That foil will resist any markers you put on top of it. I just chose to use my Altenew inks today. This wonderful tulip set comes with a die. So I have made a shaped card, I think last year, so in 2023, using this set, and I made it into a shaped tulip card. But for this, I want to make a shaped flap. So as you see, I have a lot of space off to the left, and I've just used the die to cut out along those tulip shapes. And I'm just going to snip around the bottom and this side right here, just so I can create a flap and I have a flat base on the bottom. So that if the recipient chose, they could have this card stand up and they could leave it on display like that. And it just has kind of a fun, fancy flap. And that'll make a little more sense when we're done. So this is with it all cut out, and I'm showing you it on the card base. Now, one of the things that I discovered is that I had some the back side of this was kind of yucky. And so I'm trying to figure out the best way to kind of clean that up and tidy that up so it has a more finished and polished look. So the best thing that I could come up with was to go ahead and do some trimming first. So I'm just taking this to my paper trimmer. If you felt more confident with scissors, by all means, have at it. I'm just taking this to my paper trimmer just to even up the bottom, make it look a little more finished, like the flowers ran off the edge of the paper. And then I'm going to take it to my scoreboard, and I'm going to score that left-hand side. In my scoreboard, I have put a black Sharpie line across the 6-inch side. So what I'm doing is I'm taking my little panel here, and I am lining up the edge of the foiling and the ink blending along that 6-inch score mark. The purpose for that is so that we can create a flap. So I'm just going to run my stylus along that flap right there and fold it over. And that just creates, like I said, this little flap right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply some liquid adhesive to the right hand side of that score line. And then I'm going to line it up with the bottom of the card. I'm just going to slide my card kind of in there and then tap it on my desk to get it leveled out and see that I've got everything kind of lined up at the bottom. And then that is going to be the basis for our flap. But again, we need to kind of clean up that inside of that shape because it looks kind of yucky on several of the panels here. As you can see, I do have a little bit of ink on that side. I will show you some ways to clean that up if you want to, but ultimately I decided it wasn't a big enough deal for me to mess with it. So I just kind of let it go. Again, just applying the glue to the right-hand side of that flap, wrapping it around the back of the card, and then tapping it down just to make sure it was even and flat. And then we are almost in the home stretch. Now, because I wanted this front to be actually shaped like those tulips, I'm just taking that die, lining it up once more. It's going to kind of pop in like a puzzle piece. and I have opened up my card base. That is important. Make sure you open up your card base. Otherwise, you're going to create a shaped card, which if that's what you're going for, that's how you would do it. But I wanted there just to be this shaped flap on the card. So make sure you open up your card base and then run that through your die cut machine. And then you'll see that we have almost a complete die cut here. All I'm going to do is take my scissors and run that across that top flap right there and snip that off. And then we have a shaped flap, which is so, so pretty and unique. I really, really like this. This is not something that I would want to make like 100 of, but 6 was a good number. So just snip that off and then that comes apart and you have a shaped flap on your card. I would be careful when you apply your tape when you're running this through your die cut machine. I did end up kind of scratching off and ripping off some of my foil. Make sure when you're doing this that it is a very low tack tape or a very well used tape, and that you don't get the tape on the foil because it will take that off. I'll show you how I fixed some of that in a little while, but for the most part, it wasn't a big enough deal. I didn't feel the need like I had to trash the card. So I was looking at this and I was like, man, that kind of, when I folded it over on itself, it pushed the cardstock out and it made it have almost like a shadow layer, which is not what I was going for, but was a really happy accident. So I'm actually going to keep that. I'll show you it a little closer up in a second. So one more time, just showing you how we create this flap on the card. We have this glued on there already. I've opened up my card base. I'm going to pop this die in place like a puzzle piece and run it through my die cut machine. When you take it out of your die cut machine, all you're going to have to do is snip that very top off, and then you have the shaped panel to your card. Now, in order to, like I said, clean that up and make sure we indeed have a shaped panel, I'm just going to apply some liquid glue to the back of this and I'm going to fold it over. If you don't want this kind of shadow layer that this creates, which like I said was a happy accident, then you'll just fold this over and reinforce it. Before you fold it over, glue it together. And then when you fold it, just use your bone folder to reinforce that, and that will make sure you don't have that shadow layer. But like I said, I thought that was just actually quite pretty. In fact, if you wanted to, you could almost ink blend over that in a coordinating color so that it has like a colored shadow layer, so to speak. But I just thought that was really, really pretty. So I think I bring this up to the camera so you can see it a little better. Maybe I don't. But anyway, I'm going to set my Misty on top of that just to help it adhere really good. I felt like those sharp corners were just really harsh. And so I took my Crocodile from We Are Memory Keepers and just rounded those corners. And I thought that looked really nice. So here I'm showing you some options on how to clean this up. First off, you could be a little more careful when you were ink blending and not get ink on there to begin with, but obviously that did not happen. So one of the things you can do is you can either take the ink that is on there and ink blend over that. You could take a separate panel and cover that whole thing up, but I already had my like custom stamp on there and I didn't feel like restamping all of that. So you could ink blend over it, you could cover it up entirely with another cardstock panel, or in this case, I am using a coordinating marker to color over that. I didn't like this fix. I thought it was kind of in your face and kind of brought your attention to it too much. So if I were to do it again, I would just try to be more careful while ink blending or just leave it alone entirely. Or put a different panel, like I said, over the top of it. But at the end of the day, this is the back of the card. Nobody's going to really pay attention to it. So I would rather them, I think I would just rather leave it. But those are options to help you fix it, should you desire. Now we need a sentiment. So this sentiment is actually being stamped to the inside, quote unquote, of this card. So I took a stamp set from, or excuse me, a stamp from the Simon Says Stamp Happy Easter stamp set. And I'm using Warm Sunshine, Pinkalicious, and Lavender Fields to stamp these sentiments on their coordinating cards. I I could have used black, I could have heat embossed in gold. I just decided to go ahead and stamp in these particular inks. And I'm putting it kind of in that top right corner. I thought that was a really good place, and it felt like it just kind of nestled in there really, really nice. So for one of the cards, this purple one, I really tore it really, really bad. So I took an eraser and I kind of smoothed that out a little bit. And then I'm taking one of the inks, I think this is Lavender Fields, and very lightly ink blending over that just to kind of get rid of that white. Is it a perfect fix? No. It's really kind of bold right there, but as the ink dries, it's a little more subtle and it doesn't look quite so torn. For the one on the right-hand side where I have that random green dot, I'm going to cover it up. I'm going to use the sequin and cover it up. Ideally, I wouldn't have any ink on there, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to sand that off. I knew like a white gel pen wasn't going to work. I didn't have any markers that really matched that. And so and it was green on purple. So the more I messed with it, I think the worse it was going to get. So the best option was to cover it up with a sequin. So this is the only card that has sequins on it, although you could do that to all of them. But I just really needed to cover that up. And this was the best option that I could come up with. So this is all of our cards complete. Like I said, we made 6 cards today with our fun little shaped flap. Isn't that so cool? I just think that's a wonderful little finish. As long as they don't look at the back. I kind of feel like leaving it alone was the best option. Or not getting ink on it in the first place. But that's it. That's all the cards for today. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I really appreciate you. And I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye.